Let me throw something at you. When I say USA, companies like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Nike, they come into our heads. When we talk about Japan, brands like Toyota, Suzuki, Mitsubishi, they pop into our heads. When we talk about Germany, companies like Mercedes, BMW, they pop into our heads and represent their countries. Great companies, even greater brands. But when we talk about India, here is the paradox that we'll talk about today. A culture which is 7,000 years old. It's a home to billion-plus minds. Our culture is unmatched, but yet we don't have a truly global brand. And what do I mean by a truly global brand? A truly global brand is a brand that consumers across the globe aspire for, irrespective of their taste, their preferences, their nationalities. A brand that represents India unapologetically and unmistakably. From South Korea to South America, everybody aspires to buy that brand. But why is it? Why is it that we don't have a brand? Let's zoom out a little bit. India has given world a lot. We have talent, we have culture, we have landed on the we have landed satellites on Moon, on Mars. Now we have given global CEOs. We have Bollywood. We make more movies than the entire world combined. And yet, we are somewhere lost in the background of the world track. What is India's thing? When we talk about the world, what is it that India is known for? We are like that essential good boy who has all the good marks, good, great conduct, but zero attention. It's like, you score all the tests, you get great marks, but nobody wants to date you, right? That is India at the global scale, right? And let me give this to you, it's the reason why Indian brands are not global are majorly two. The first is that India has not yet reached its escape velocity. And I will talk about it later in my talk. But the second and more important part of that is that we are underinvested in the power of stories. We don't tell the world why we matter. Branding is not logos, it's not colors, it's not fonts. It's about experience. It's about feeling. It is that first unboxing of your iPhone. It is about that sunset in Santorini. You don't remember the megapixels on your camera. You remember the people it connects you with. You remember the memories it creates. It is an experience to be savored in the moment, and it's a memory to be revisited. Let me take you back. It wasn't always like this. When Alexander came to India 2,000 years back, he didn't come here to give. He came here to take. He came here because India was richer than Greece. He came here because India was richer than Europe. When Megasthenes, his ambassador, landed in India 2,000 years back, he found documented history predating 5,000 years. That makes us a 7,000-year-old civilization. Yet, whose story does the world know? I'll give you a hint, it's not ours. Alexander is Alexander the Great, and India is a boorish country. And why is that? It's because the Britishers, they did not just rule us, they robbed our identity. For 200 years, the British Empire looted approximately more than $50 trillion from India. They killed more than 100 million people in India in 200 years. And yet, England is a champion of democracy, and India is a land of snake charmers. Even our independence tale our struggle has not been documented that well. France has French Revolution. Germany has its own tale. There have been hundreds of movies made about French Revolution, the Nazi rule, even 9/11. But the best known movie about Indian independence was made by a Britisher. We are scared to tell our own story. We wait for a Western validation before we value ourselves. It has happened with yoga. It has happened with turmeric. It has happened with basmati rice. Till the time a person from the West says you are good, we don't dare value ourselves. But that needs to change. But why am I telling you now? Because this needs to change. Why am I bringing stories of 1,000 years or 100 years back now? Because this impacts our present and it will shape our future. Stories don't just belong to books. Stories create nations. Stories can create companies and people. A $20 cotton shirt becomes a $2,000 fashion statement only with a logo, because that logo whispers something in your ears. It is that association that it creates. Prada recently took our Kolhapuri chappal and put a price tag of $500 on it. A 500 rupee chappal, which is less than $5, becomes a $500 statement because Prada said so. It takes audacity to do that. It takes branding power. It takes a strong narrative, and it takes a strong why for people to, why should I pay this? And this is what Indian companies need. It is not margin selling, not taking a $10 product and selling it at 15 or 20. But how do you take a $10 product and sell it at 100? How do you take a $10 product and sell it at 1,000? That is the power of stories. Because stories create aspirations. And aspiration creates market power. India is at the verge, okay? India is the 4th largest economy, and very soon we will be the 3rd largest economy. But if you look at the next chart, which talks about per capita GDP, we are in the bottom 30 across the world. It's not a good picture, but that is where the picture is changing. If you look at this image very carefully, we are where China was in 2007. We are at a 3K per capita GDP right now, and the journey to 3K to 12K per capita GDP is where countries evolve. Country changes. It changes the way a country consumes. It changes the way a country does business. It changes the way a country behaves. And in order to do that, India by 2047 is poised to be a $40 trillion economy. India is poised to be a developed country by 2047. That is when India turns 100. And for us to be that power, all of us in this room and whoever watches this talk, we all have a role to play. And India will evolve. India will become a good a $40 trillion economy. There will be companies who are 10x their current sizes. If you see China at 3K, there were no global companies coming from China in 2007. But if you take any sector right now, there would be at least 30% companies coming from China. That will happen to India in 2047. There will be brands who will sell from South Korea to South America. There will be banks who will be 10x their current size. And we all will have a role to play. And this is where I present to you the Vision 2047. India needs a rebrand, a deep rebrand, a very strategic rebrand, and an unapologetic rebrand. I'm Sudhanshu, and I work with brands across the globe with my brand consultancy firm, Kissa House. And the realization in founders and leaders that they are not in the business of selling products, but they are in the business of creating narratives, evoking emotions. The day founders realize it, that is the day the companies change. And if India has to change, it has to be done across 3 key levers. Brand India, India as a brand. The second is Indian brands, companies operating out of India. And the third is Indians as a brand. All of us are brand ambassadors. For India as a brand, we need a huge political might, work on infrastructure, and soft power. We need to own our storytelling. We cannot let others narrate stories about us. If somebody else writes your playbooks, they will define your role in it. But if you write your own stories, you will write it about you. It's high time India writes its own story. It's high time on global stages, Indian voices are heard, spoken, and appreciated. The second part of that is about Indian brands. Indian brands need to ditch copied playbooks. You need to have a greater horizon and a wider playbook. And the first part of that is to get global. Getting global is not optional for Indian brands now. It is a need, and it is a duty towards the nation. India is a net importer. We have a fiscal deficit, and if by 2047 we have to be a $40 trillion economy, our per capita has to be closer to 30,000, which in PPT terms would be close to 50,000 per capita. This needs to change. We need to export to the world. And for that, we need to move away from this quarterly sales targets, from lead mongering. We need to think, why should a couple sitting in Peru aspire for an Indian brand? We need to think, why should a young entrepreneur from Africa collaborate with us? How should we stay on top of global minds? And that is the role of a leader in organization today. It's not about worrying about sales. It's not about what happens to quarterly results, but to have a longer horizon looking at the world. The second part of that is build leverage through story. And the third is quality. In the post-World War era, Japan was synonymous as a producer of cheap quality goods. However, they invested in quality, and now they are the world leaders when it comes to quality. The third part of that is Indians as a brand. All of us are a brand. The Silicon Valley entrepreneur, to hotelier in London, to the cab driver in Goa, to the tourist in Thailand, all of us are Indian ambassadors. And the world will perceive India through our conduct. And the 3 ways we can change is our conduct, our cleanliness, and our health. It's time, it's a high time that we stop outsourcing our own story. It's high time we stop just feeling good about our country. It's high time we stop saying that we stop feeling that our country is great. It's high time we start telling it. The brand India needs to be told, needs to be sold, and needs to be scaled. And it is the duty of all of us. It's not the job of one person. And if India has to be successful, 2047 is a nice horizon. It's not a small time frame, it's 22 years. And it's not big enough that it's vague. By 2047, India can change. And all of us here in the room, across the country, we have a role to play. If we have to build the scale, we have to find the soul. We have to go deep beneath and with purity at our heart, find what we stand for. And portray it, sell it, and scale it. Not just on the TED platform, but on the global platform. I'm Sudhanshu, and this is my time. Thank you so much.